All right, welcome to the Young Turks. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur. We got a ton of news for you guys. We have plenty of news, of course, continuing about gun control in America and Donald Trump's bizarre, ridiculous reactions to it, the NRA's over-the-top, outrageous speeches about it. That's a little bit later in the show. Also, some regulatory news from behind the scenes that almost no one else is covering, including a story that we broke earlier today at TYT Investigates about Donald Trump's team dismantling regulations that are meant to protect consumers and letting the robbers rob us blind. So that's a little bit later in the program as well. But I don't want you to lose track of these two stories. There's two stories in the rundown today that are wonderful news for progressives. Excellent news. So I will get to that in a little bit as well. So lots to cover, so let's get started. Okay, Donald Trump met with some of the survivors from some of the recent mass shootings yesterday. We covered that for you on the show yesterday. Afterwards, we found a snapshot, as did of course the rest of the media, of his notes from this get together. You might remember Sarah Palin writing on her hand sometimes, and people found a picture of that, and it had words like freedom on it. No one understood why that needed to be written down. Well, we have a similar case here with Donald Trump. Apparently, his staffers needing to write down very, very simple things for him. So let's take a look at the note. Now, his hands are partly covering this. There's another one where his hands aren't covering it, but that's okay. Number one is perfectly normal. What would you most want me to know about your experience? And it goes on about how can we keep you safe, et cetera. Look, you could say they're simplistic as well, but that's all totally fine and nothing wrong with that. But look at number 5. Can you see it there? If you can't see it, here, we'll show it to you. It says, I hear you. Note number 5 to the President of the United States was, remember when you have set up a listening situation in the White House where it's called a listening session, when you brought in these survivors, remember to tell them at the end, I hear you. Not I'm gonna take action, not here's the list of actions I'm gonna take. Just hear them out and then at the end say, I hear you. Okay, so it's not a huge story. It's just a little emblematic of Trump and a little emblematic of Washington. The staffers write down notes basically on how to avoid us citizens and get around uncomfortable questions. And for a guy like Trump, you've got to keep it incredibly simple. Of course, Trump being who he is, forgot to turn the note the other way. I remember once he had done a picture where he said he was working really hard on a bunch of papers, and he turned up the papers like this so you didn't see that they were blank. In this case, he accidentally turns it the wrong way so you could see, oh, I'm supposed to tell you, I hear you. I am full of empathy. All right, well, the funny thing is, Donald Trump, we hear you. All right, that's that. Just a absurd little story about Donald Trump as usual. Okay, so now let's go to a more weighty topic on the same issue of gun control. Okay. Marco Rubio did something that is arguably brave. He decided that he was going to attend a town hall with a lot of the survivors from the shooting in Parkland, Florida. When he agreed to do that, I was borderline shocked because he is taking $3.3 million from the NRA, and it's not a pretty look. I don't know if he did it out of arrogance. Oh, I'll just sweet talk him out of it because everybody in Washington tells me what a great politician I am and what a smooth talker I am. Or if he did it out of, going into the lion's den and I'm going to stand my ground. I don't know what his motivation was. Now others were there. The sheriff was there, but the sheriff from down there was in favor of gun control, and the crowd like that. It was about 7,000 people there. It was a bit of an amazing event, and credit to CNN for putting it together. And Governor Bill Nelson was there, and now he's in favor of gun control. Again, a little bit easier for him. And then Dana Loesch from the NRA, and that did not go well. We'll share that with you later. But Senator Marco Rubio, is corrupt. He has taken NRA money. Now, of course, in polite television circles, they never say that's corruption, although the rest of us know that's corruption. No, the NRA gave him $3.3 million out of the goodness of their heart, just for their health or charity, and he took it out of the goodness of his heart. Now, the problem here is it's not television anchors who are trained not to ask hard questions of establishment politicians. It's actual people and people who are survivors of the shootings. So they are gonna ask hard questions. Now, before we get to Rubio, I actually wanna go to student Michelle Lapido. She wanted to ask this of Dana Loesch. She had not yet showed up at the town hall. But this gives you a sense of the anger, justifiably so, that they have about the NRA and overall the money that is making this crisis possible as it flows into the politicians and they refuse to pass gun control laws. So let's watch the student first.
I had a question for Ms. Loesch, but she's not here yet. So for her and the NRA, which she's probably watching, and all of you puppet politicians that they are backing, was the blood of my classmates and my teachers worth your blood money?
Senator Nelson, you don't have to answer that question. Let's move on to the next question.
Excuse me?
Now, the reason why it's not great timing in that case is because Nelson is a Democrat who is in favor of gun control. So, and she said it, the student said it was mainly for Dana Loesch from the NRA. But it would have been great if Marco Rubio was asked that question because he does take money from the NRA and does do their bidding. Don't worry, student Cameron Kasky stepped up and pretty much asked the same thing, a little bit more politely, but very much to the point. Watch.
Senator Rubio, can you tell me right now that you will not accept a single donation from the NRA in the future? I wish I could have asked the NRA lady a question. I wish the NRA lady I could have talked to, because I would ask her how she can look in the mirror, considering the fact that she has children, but maybe she avoids those.
What was that? I'm sorry?
I don't freaking know.
That's okay. The question is about NRA money.
So, man, I love it when real people get in a room with a politician, because the anchors never ask about the money. The people on television never ask, hey, is it a coincidence that you took millions of dollars from a multinational corporation and then voted on their behalf? Is it a coincidence that you took millions of dollars from the NRA and you voted on their behalf? It's not a coincidence. The rest of us know it's not a coincidence. It's from the mouth of babes. It takes a student who suffered this tragedy to ask the most obvious question in the world. So let's see how Marco Rubio tries to wriggle out of it.
So number one, the positions I hold on these issues of the Second Amendment, I've held since the day I entered office in the city of West Miami as an elected official. Number two, no, the answer to the question is that people buy into my agenda. And I do support the Second Amendment. And I also support the right of you and everyone here to be able to go to school and be safe. And I do support any law that would keep guns out of the hands of a deranged killer. And that's why I support the things that I have stood for and fought for during my time there.
NRA money? More NRA money?
That is the wrong way to look. First of all, the answer is people buy into my agenda.
You could say no.
Number second, well, listen, I respect, you can ask that question and I can tell you that people buy into my agenda. I will answer any questions you guys have about any policy.
Right now, in the name of 17 people, you cannot ask the NRA to keep their money out of your campaign?
I think in the name of 17 people, I can pledge to you that I will support any law that will prevent a killer like this.
No, but I'm talking NRA money.
No, because, and therefore, you have every right to ask that question of me, and I'm here to tell you that I will stand for the things. Are you going to be
accepting money from the NRA in the future?
I've always supported, I will always accept the help of anyone who agrees with my agenda.
Okay, so let's break that down. Number one, he says, look, man, they just happen to find me and support my agenda. Well, look, there is a tiny bit of truth in that because there's 330 million people in the country. So if you want someone who is going to support everything that a multinational corporation wants, you'll be able to find that person and then give them millions upon millions of dollars until they win elections. And you swamp out the guy that doesn't have the corporate money and you put him in office. If you want a guy like Marco Rubio who says, yeah, no matter what, no matter how many massacres happen of my citizens and my citizens' kids, I will always support the NRA in their position to buy weapons. Well, then the NRA will find you and give you millions upon millions of dollars so you could win every election. So now, is Marco Rubio aware that he took over $3 million from the NRA? Might that affect his vote? Both before and after? Of course he knows that and it affects his vote. It is preposterous to say otherwise. So now look, I asked Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia on this show when he came on about one of his top donors. They are a polluter of streams. And he specifically voted, Senator Manchin did, to deregulate polluting streams. And he said, well, I don't know my donors. Oh, is that right? I didn't know my donors. Oh, come on. So under the Marco Rubio political speak, Senator Manchin would say, I've always been for polluting streams, and it just so happened that a company that pollutes streams wound up being one of my top donors. Oh, come on. So, and by the way, if you really believe that, like you're a big Second Amendment guy and you think, man, we gotta make sure that every kind of weapon is in the hands of every lunatic in the country. And yes, by the way, the NRA is in favor of selling guns to the mentally ill. They go around CPAC pretending they're not, but they have actually asked the Trump administration to allow for more mentally ill people to have guns, and the Trump administration did do their bidding. Marco Rubio is in favor of that. But if, let's say he was a truly principled man, he actually could say yes to that young student there. He could say, hey, you know what? I'll stop taking the NRA money. I'll still vote with the NRA because I truly believe it, but I don't have to take their money to vote that way. In fact, a progressive candidate in California, Allison Hartson, running against Dianne Feinstein, says she takes no PAC money. She believes in the unions, but won't take their money. She said, because if I vote with the unions, I don't want anyone thinking I'm doing it for the money. But Marco Rubio, under no circumstances, with 7,000 people booing and 17 people that are his citizens in Florida dead, goes, no way, I'm gonna keep that money and I'm gonna keep on taking that money. But one more thing, he said at one point, if someone has decided I'm gonna commit this crime, they will find a way to get the gun to do it. That is not true. So they find a way to get the gun in America because we have no gun control. So let me show you stats, and I'm gonna keep on showing you these stats until it gets to people's heads. So gun death totals in America in an average year is 37,593. That is unreal. So I'm gonna give you context, show you Japan's numbers in a second, but let me show you the whole world's numbers in terms of guns versus mass shooters. So I keep on showing you this because it is not, those countries on the lower left, low amount of guns, low amount of mass shooters. Us, the United States all the way up in the right corner, huge amount of guns, huge amount of mass shooters. There is just as many people per capita who are mentally ill in China, Russia, India, Philippines, etc., okay? But what they don't have access to, a lot of them, some of them are mentally ill, some of them have criminal intent, but they don't have access to weapons. So there's not as many mass shooters, there's not as many gun homicides. So that brings me to Japan. In 2013, American gun-related deaths included 21,175 suicides, 11,208 homicides, and 505 deaths caused by an accidental discharge. That same year in Japan, a country with 1/3 America's population, guns were involved in only 13 deaths. Is it because everyone has perfect mental health in Japan and there are no criminals in Japan? No, it's because they can't get guns. It's not that complicated. Here, one more piece of context. This means that an American is about 300 times more likely to die by gun homicide or accident than a Japanese person. America's guns ownership rate is 150 times as high as Japan's. More guns equals more gun deaths. Every lie that comes out of Marco Rubio's mouth and all of the bought politicians is paid for by the NRA. They know these stats too, and they never talk about these stats because then they'd have to admit, yes, I'm doing it for the money. I was gonna say, I sure hope that blood money is worth it, but no amount of money is worth that. These politicians are truly craven. Young Turks. All right, back on the Young Turks. J. Thomas Gordy writes in about the Trump note. Good majority of the note exposed. If only Trump had bigger hands. Could have covered up the whole note. Larry Vedder writes in, number 4 was probably thoughts and prayers. Our own Bart Kyle writes in, I think Marco Rubio would have a great career as an undercover police officer and pose as a student at a local high school. Excellent point, Bart. He is a boy. Okay, now, a little bit later in the program, I have a devastatingly annoying story about the Democrats and on the issue of gun control. As loathsome as the Republicans are, of course, the establishment Democrats have already begun to run for the hills. They are unbearable. They are unbearable. But in this segment, and I'm going to jump back and forth between guns and other stories. In this segment, I've got great news for you for progressives. So let's go over here and do that. Now, during the 2016 campaign, the establishment Democrats said, Medicare for all, universal coverage. Oh, it's a nice pipe dream. Oh, we're theoretically in favor of it 30 or 40 years from now, but not right now. No, of course not. Please, look, we have a wonderful new drug on the market. It's called gradualism. Just take the tranquilizing drug and everything's gonna be okay. Now, Bernie Sanders persisted, and lo and behold, turns out that idea was not only very popular among Democrats, but very popular in the whole country. Over 60% of the country wants Medicare for all. You know why? Medicare is a very popular program. It totally works. It has a 77% approval rating. And now the rest of the country is going, wait, that's a pretty good idea. It's cheaper and it gives better results. Why don't you let us in? Now, Center for American Progress is a Democratic think tank. There are a lot of establishment folks in there. Podesta used to run it, John Podesta. Neera Tanden is there. She was one of Hillary Clinton's biggest supporters. She's actually quoted here. We'll get to her in a second. So now that doesn't mean they don't do any good work. And their blog Think Progress sometimes has excellent articles backed up by facts. And I check it from time to time, and fair is fair. Now, on the other hand, they're a little careful when it comes to corporations and some Democratic donors. And they certainly were in the Hillary camp, and they certainly were in the, oh, take it easy with this Medicare for all stuff. And lo and behold, even though they told us we'll get to it many years later, if at all of a sudden, the tide has turned. So, let me go to Jonathan Cohen at HuffPost. He reports there is a new proposal from the Center for American Progress, and the proposal, which its authors called Medicare Extra for All, would create a new public program based on Medicare that would be open to anybody. All of a sudden. Now look, I'll take a win any way you can get it. And be cautious, it is not Medicare for all, it's Medicare Extra for All, whatever that means. And what that means when you dive into the details is, it's a little bit of Medicare, you could use the Medicare system. It's a little bit of public option, you could buy into it. And it certainly still maintains the private system, so those private health insurers are still in business. But it is progress, so let me give you more. The proposal, which Ricardo Alonso Zaldivar of the Associated Press first reported Wednesday evening, also calls for automatically enrolling the uninsured, among others, in this new program in the hopes of finally achieving universal coverage. Well, that is very good news. I will take it. Now, don't get me wrong, am I in favor of this program? No, I'm for Medicare for all. So I know, as always, with the establishment guys, just a little bit of change. They're gonna give you, just come here, come this way, come this way. No. We fight for Medicare for all. You know what we're gonna get if we fight for it? Medicare for all. That's what we're gonna get. But anyway, this is not a Republican proposal. This is not a crazy proposal. It's a pretty good proposal. We're just gonna do better. Okay, but here, and if they actually covered all the uninsured, it would be wonderful. Let's keep going. It's a reflection of how far the party's internal conversation has shifted, Cohen says, in the direction of government-run insurance. even since the 2016 presidential campaign when Senator Bernie Sanders made a pure single-payer system the cornerstone of his Democratic primary run. It's also a leading indicator of how Democrats plan to approach healthcare as they start thinking about the 2020 presidential campaign. Again here, guys, it's a little bit of a mixed bag because part of what they're trying to do is take the wind out of the progressive sails and Bernie Sanders sails by going halfway towards there and go, see, you don't need that. You don't need Bernie. I mean, he would cost all of our Democratic consultants lots of money. Get money out of politics, then we'd be out of business. We don't want that. So let's just go halfway there. But on the other hand, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. The fact that they're finally coming in our direction. The whole time they always said, all those establishment Democrats, you guys are crazy, you're impractical, those aren't popular, you gotta come more towards us, more towards the right, more towards the right. But we have changed the tide. Now they are coming more towards us, the left. You know why? Because it's really popular. It's really, really popular. By the way, if you keep going, it'll be even more popular. You might get to Medicare for all, which polls at 60% or better. All right, and finally, a quote from Neera Tanden of all people. Hillary supporter extraordinaire. There is a broad consensus, she says, within the broad progressive debate that healthcare is a right and that everybody should have healthcare. And we recognize the virtue of a strong public plan available to all the people. Well, hear, Neera, agreed. Now, the context, of course, is that when progressives begged, screamed, kicked, pushed, and did everything they could during the Affordable Care Act debate for a public option, the establishment Democrats said, oh, no, it's a bridge too far. They said, oh, you guys are not practical. Joe Lieberman's not in favor of it. Okay, and then when we pushed for Medicare all, they said, no. Now all of a sudden they're like, a public plan. We'll put Medicare in the title. Medicare extra for all, please. Can you give us some of your popularity? That's right, progressives are winning. So look, again, I do feel strongly in both ways here. One is, yes, it is coming towards us for political reasons because they realize it is the more popular position. They do not want to go all the way when in fact it is more popular if you go all the way progressive. I'm not saying that because I'm a progressive, I'm saying that because I could read polls. But at the same time, when people are coming to your direction, let us also keep our arms open and say welcome. So, and encourage them, keep on coming, keep on going a little bit more, and you might actually get to a position that the American people love. Okay, so that's great news. Okay, now, even better news. Better than that, interesting, okay. Now I told you guys about a candidate running in the middle of Kansas who's a real diehard progressive. His name is Brent Welder, and Brent is an interesting guy. He cares so much about getting money out of politics, he volunteered for Wolfpack, wolf-pack.com, that's awesome. Where did he find out about Wolfpack? Turns out TYT. Turns out not only has he been a TYT viewer, he's a TYT member. Now, he's running for Congress, but is he gonna win it? Is it really a member of the TYT army going to win a seat in the middle of Kansas? He's running against Yoder, who's a deeply right-wing Republican in the middle of Kansas. Now we get to the interesting news. First of all, he was endorsed and picked by the Just Democrats, so Just Democrats are fully on board. Today, a new endorsement, Our Revolution. That is Bernie Sanders' group, 6 million strong. Wait, we're not done. And another one, Progressive Change Campaign Committee, boldprogressives.org. PCCC also endorsing Brent Welder. Looks like momentum, but hold. You ready for this? There is a new poll out, public policy polling. Brent Welder, the new leader in the race, winning against Kevin Yoder, the incumbent Republican, 49-42. I love it. I love it. That's not 49-42 in the primary. That's 49-42 against the incumbent, a Republican in the middle of Kansas. What did I tell you? They're not coming for us, we're coming for them. Brent Welder is an amazing candidate, that's why he did this. I'm gonna tell you more about him, but look, this is so important that you get involved. So we set up a website, tytkansas.com. You gotta get in the fight right now. We gotta get him $50,000, I'll tell you why, okay? But I need to see that thermometer go up and up and up and up until we hit at least $50,000. Okay, so a couple of reasons why. One, if we help him, he's gonna win. What is he gonna use the $50,000 for? He's gonna use it for a field team. The number one way you win, I have talked to politicians all across the country, the national level and the state level. Whenever I ask them, how did you defeat an incumbent, especially at the state level, the number one answer is knocking on doors. But you can't knock on doors if you don't have a field team. The $50,000 is to hire a field team. You gotta give it to Brent, you gotta back him up. You gotta bring the TYT cavalry. Let me tell you something else about Brent. Reason number two, when we were raising money for this studio, Brent gave money. It's time to pay him back. Okay, one of our own, one of you guys is about to become a United States congressman. This is when you bring the cavalry. At a minimum 50,000. He's not taking, he's a just Democrat, so he's not taking any corporate PAC money. Our Revolution and PCCC would never back him if he wasn't a diehard progressive who's gonna fight for you guys. And by the way, what does that mean? If you live in the middle of Kansas, you live in his district, what does it mean? It means that he's gonna fight for the average guy. He wants your wages to be higher. Don't you deserve that? You work so hard. The Republicans keep telling you, no, your wages gotta be lower. No. If you want any jobs, you gotta have low wages. That is not a fair equation. It's not right. You're working your ass off. You deserve higher wages. Your kids deserve a chance at college. Your family deserves health care. You're working so hard, but if one disaster in a healthcare situation could wipe you out. Well, Brent's not gonna let that happen. He doesn't take corporate money, so he's not gonna represent corporations. He's gonna represent you guys. Now, how much has he already raised? Is he already viable in that sense? Get a load of this. This is not a California candidate, it's not a New York candidate, this is in the middle of Kansas. As of the filing deadline ending December 31st, Welder reported raising $255,749 from over 2,000 grassroots donations. Can I see 4,000 grassroots donations? Let's make this happen. Now, before he gets to the general election though, he does have a Democratic primary opponent. Of course, an establishment corporate Democrat who says that no, in Kansas you should compromise. And that's, wait till you get a load of the guy's slogans. His opponent has two slogans. One is leading from the middle. Oh my God, that might be the worst slogan I have ever seen in my entire life. Until you get to his next slogan. The courage to compromise. Wait, dude, you haven't even gotten into office and you're already compromising. The third slogan might as well be preemptive surrender to the Republicans. No, we're not interested in surrender anymore. We're interested in guys like Brent Welder, who's gonna fight for you. Okay, by the way, is this seat winnable? Look, it's easy to say in the middle of Kansas, everybody thinks like, oh my God, it's gotta be a huge uphill fight. Look, in 2016, that particular district, Hillary Clinton won Kansas' 3rd district over Donald Trump by 47.2 to 46. So it's a tight margin, so you gotta make sure that you're involved. If you're there, volunteer, and we'll put all the links to how to volunteer, donate, etc. down below in the description box if you're watching on YouTube and the comment section on Facebook. And obviously tytkansas.com to contribute to get him to where he needs to be. But Hillary won that district by 1 point, so there's no reason why a Democrat can't win, especially a strong Democrat. In fact, let me give you the last couple of polls here that show you how great a chance he has. Do you approve or disapprove of Trump's performance so far in this district in Kansas? Only 41% approve and 56% disapprove. So if Brent goes to the general election, he's gonna be in great shape, but he needs a field team. All right, and two issues for you guys to give you a sense of no matter where you are in the country, don't buy into the establishment hype that you gotta go further right wing, you gotta appease the Republicans to win votes. Not at all. Look at these poll numbers. Also from public policy polling. Save billions of dollars reversing tax cuts for the rich and eliminating tax loopholes for the large corporations, and use that money to make long-term investments in rebuilding our roads, bridges, and schools. So do you want to do that? Reverse the billionaire tax cuts and do infrastructure. 65% support, 21% opposed. They tell you, oh, in Kansas, they love giving billionaires tax cuts. No, they don't. Why not give it to the middle class? And finally, should Congress fully investigate the Wall Street bankers who caused the financial meltdown, and if they broke the law, prosecute and jail them? 77% support, only 10% oppose. Yes, they defrauded us. I know that they are represented by almost everybody else in Congress. Why? Because they take corporate money. Brent Welder doesn't take corporate money, so he's gonna represent actual people, the citizens of Kansas. Make him your representative and let him fight for you. tytkansas.com. We gotta make that happen. We will check back in to see where we are with that throughout this show and every show until we get to that mark. You go get him, Brent. Too strong, way too strong. Congressman Brent Welder, how good is that gonna sound on election night? All right, Young Turks, we'll be right back. All right, we're back on the Young Turks, guys. Tom Zawacki writes in, another example of the Democrats greasing the squeaking wheel on the Medicare for All issue. Trouble is they never fix the problem that causes the squeaking wheel to begin with. Nerd Frequency asks, rightfully so, doesn't this vindicate the progressives that didn't vote Hillary? No way this happens if Hillary won. Oh, I see what you're saying. In that case, it is a very open question, and it is a good question. On the other hand, Trump has taken away parts of the Affordable Care Act, and now with the story we told you about Idaho killing basically the clause that protects you from pre-existing conditions. Well, yeah, you might be right that the Center for American Progress might not have gone as far if Hillary had won. On the other hand, we also wouldn't have gone backwards under Trump. So it's a complicated question. I'm just keeping it real on all sides, okay? So now I gotta keep going, guys. Ton of news for you. Let's go over here. Okay. I know, I do, don't worry, that's my job. That was Siri telling me she doesn't have an answer for that because I accidentally pressed the wrong button. Okay, Donald Trump has a brilliant idea for school shootings. Let's give weapons to the teachers so we could have shootouts at the OK Corral at all these schools. Look, it gets worse, but let me show you the beginning of this genius idea by Donald Trump. Watch.
There would be teachers and coaches. If the coach had a firearm in his locker when he ran at this guy, that coach was very brave, saved a lot of lives, I suspect. But if he had a firearm, he wouldn't have had to run, he would have shot, and that would have been the end of it. It's called concealed carry, where a teacher would have a concealed gun on them. They'd go for special training, and they would be there, and you would no longer have a gun-free zone. You'd have a lot of people that'd be armed, that'd be ready. They're professionals. They may be Marines that left the Marines, left the Army, left the Air Force.
Well, if only there were armed guards protecting the school, then this whole thing would have been resolved. Except that a news story just broke that there actually was an armed officer at the school, and he did not go in. He has now resigned. So, hey, that magical solution, apparently not that magical. But Donald Trump is going to continue with this absurdity.
General John Kelly. So he's a 4-star Marine. He's a tough cookie. If he was a teacher of mine, I wouldn't mind having him have a gun, because I guarantee he can use it better than anybody. There's no security guard you're going to hire that's going to handle a gun better than him. So if he's a teacher, and if other friends of his from the Marine, if they're teaching, or other people like that, I want them to have a gun. General Kelly is the history teacher. He's teaching about how we win wars, okay? And he's got a concealed weapon, but they're going to know he's got a concealed, because we tell them that the bullets are going to be flying in the other direction. You're not going to have these attacks if you do that.
So as I just told you, there actually was an armed guard there, and it happened anyway because it turns out crazy people with guns don't care about that. Most of them, as John pointed out yesterday on the show, either get caught or get killed on the scene anyway. None of these kids have ever, or any of these shooters have ever gotten away with it. So it's a preposterous point to begin with. Number two, you really want bullets going both ways? So, oh, great shootouts at the school, wonderful idea. Number three, you know why General Kelly would be good at shooting back? Because he's a general, because he was in the Marines, but most teachers are not generals and did not spend their entire lives in the military. In fact, a teacher who voted for Trump made a similar point that I'm going to show you in a little bit. But let me first go to more of Donald Trump's tweets on this insane idea. First, Bloomberg News initially reported that Trump floated the idea of giving teachers a little bit of a bonus for carrying guns with them during a meeting with school safety officials. So that happened earlier today. So, hey, let's train some teachers to shoot. And we'll give them a bonus for what? Bonus every time they shoot one of their students who had a gun or they thought had a gun? How's the bonus gonna work? Oh, okay. So let's go now to the absurd tweets. Trump says, I never said give teachers guns, like was stated on fake news, CNN and NBC. What I said was to look at the possibility of giving concealed guns to gun adept teachers with military or special training experience, only the best. 20% of teachers, a lot, would now be able to immediately fire back. But before we go to the rest of the thing, did you see that? I want to highlight it for you in case it wasn't clear enough, although it's super clear in the tweet, but let's go to the highlighted version. I never said give teachers guns. One sentence later, he's in favor of giving guns to teachers. Somebody tackle him before he gets to Twitter. For God's sake, man. Now, I saw the rest of the tweet. Yes, to 20% of the teachers, which he then says is a lot. So let me finish the sentence. So a lot would now be able to immediately fire back if a savage sicko came to a school with bad intentions. Highly trained teachers would also serve as a deterrent to the cowards that do this. Far more assets at much less cost than guards. A quote, gun-free school is a magnet for bad people. Attacks would end. Well, apparently they wouldn't because, again, an armed guard there and the school got attacked anyway. But his idea is like, I didn't say give every single teacher a gun. I just said the really good ones. The ones that are good at shooting and such, so they can shoot back and forth, back and forth. In other words, you said give guns to teachers. But he's not done proving his own point a lie. He continues to go. He says, history shows that a school shooting lasts on average 3 minutes. It takes police and first responders approximately 5 to 8 minutes to get to the site of the crime. Highly trained gun adept teachers, coaches would solve the problem instantly before police arrive. Great deterrent. And he says, if potential sicko shooter knows that a school has a large number of very weapons talented teachers, oh, great. Weapons talented teachers and others who will be instantly shooting, this sicko will never attack that school. Cowards won't go there, problem solved, must be offensive, defense alone won't work. What a simple-minded fool. Oh yeah, I got a great idea. These guys, these weapons talented teachers, we just give them all weapons and to look out for whoever comes in. You bang, 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 and shoot them. Bullets going both ways. We're playing offense. You don't want to play offense with weapons inside a school. All right, no empathy whatsoever. All right, now let's go to that teacher who voted for Trump. Her name is Ashley Kurth, and she asked this during a town hall.
Senator Rubio, I'm a registered Republican. I voted for Mr. Trump. I still, support the Second Amendment. However, with that being said, and with all these talks of gun control laws and everything that you guys have been up there stating to us of what you're going to do about it, a lot of the flack that I've been getting back from my friends and from a lot of other people that are around the world is the answer to the gun problem is to arm teachers. And when I had those hundreds of terrified children that were running at me, my question to that is, am I supposed to get extra training now to serve and protect on top of educate these children on how to be these eloquent speakers that are coming up and presenting issues to you? I mean, am I supposed to have a Kevlar vest? Am I supposed to strap it to my leg or put it in my desk? How am I supposed to go on that way?
Well, first, I don't support that.
Okay, so think about that. What a great question. She's like, so I have to train to be a teacher, and now you're telling me on top of that, I have to train to know how to use a gun and get vests. And the Republicans will not ban AR-15s, assault weapons. So those are weapons of war. So now they're telling teachers, it's okay, just turn the school into a war zone. And suit up and have guns all over you in case somebody else with guns comes in. All right, but one of the students here, Sam Zeev, who talked to President Trump yesterday, made the best point of all. Watch this.
Sam, what did you think about the president's idea of arming teachers?
Madness. Like, just absolute madness. Teachers go through emotions every single day, just like students do, just like mentally ill people do, just like everyone. And teachers are faced with the responsibility every single day of molding young lives and mentoring them and being there for them. Why should they be faced with the responsibility of knowing whether or not they're gonna have to kill them that day?
I gotta be honest, I hadn't thought of it that way until he said it. We'd be training the teachers to kill their students. So the shooter in Parkland, Florida was a former student. And at the school shootings, it is usually either current or former students who come in. So you wouldn't be killing the innocent students, obviously, but you would be teaching the teachers how to shoot guns and spot the wrong student. If you think one of your students is going to do harm to the others, be ready to kill them. Are you insane? Look at what they've done to our country. We are no longer trying to prevent massacres in schools. We're trying to teach the teachers which students to execute if the school turns into a war zone. This is the state of madness in America. All right, now let me show you in the next story the person who, one of the people who is creating that madness. So let's go to Dana Loesch. Dana Loesch is a representative of the NRA. She decided she was going to attend the CNN's town hall event, 7,000 people there, and they were mad. And they had every right to be mad. How many kids are we going to lose and sacrifice at the altar of the NRA in this country? Does the NRA want assault weapons banned? No. Their leader, Wayne LaPierre, went to CPAC and said, the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. It's the same thing he said after Newtown. He said we need to arm as many people inside the schools as possible and turn them basically into war zones. Dana Loesch agrees with that concept. So first, she's going to give her softer version, and it ain't very soft, on CNN, and it is not well received. Let's watch.
He should have been barred from getting a firearm, and he should not have been able to. He should, A, never been able to get a firearm. B, people who are crazy should not be able to get firearms. C, people who are dangerous to themselves and other individuals. Let me answer. If we're here to have a discussion, that's why I'm here. I was a very politically active teenager, and I'm on this stage as a result of that. Think of how far you all could go as a result of voicing your beliefs. I want to answer your question, and I want to be allowed the opportunity, which is why I am here. Crazy people, people who are murderers. No, we've been actually talking about that for a long time. Let me answer the question. You can shout me down when I'm finished, but let me answer Emma's question. It's not federally mandated. That's the big question, and I wish that this network had also covered this more as other media networks would have covered it. That's a huge, wait a second.
So there's some people in the crowd obviously very unhappy. One person shouted out murderer. And her point was, if you all study hard and work hard, you could one day be an NRA sellout like me too and get paid a lot of money to do propaganda while other people get shot. Wow, what a convincing point. She then, of course, immediately did a diversionary tactic, blamed the media. Oh, the media doesn't cover it. But the heart of her argument was, it's all mentally healthy. She never should have been allowed a gun in the first place, really? But the NRA position is that he should have been allowed a gun. First of all, he was not mentally adjudicated. He was not, adjudicated to be mentally incompetent. So the NRA, if we had caught the shooter before he did the shootings, and we saw all the weapons that he had, the NRA would have defended him 100%. If we said, hey, can we take guns away from this kid, even though he hasn't been adjudicated mentally ill, the NRA would have said, no way. In fact, I have the law that they pushed for. Now, they won on what they were going for because they gave Donald Trump over $31 million when he was running for president. And that goes a long way towards getting Donald Trump to do whatever you want. Now, first of all, does Donald Trump care about mentally ill people and making sure they get treatment? Absolutely not. I can prove it to you with the numbers. His budget was recently released, the budget blueprint, slashed spending for the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration by $665 million. Additionally, Bloomberg reported that the National Institute of Mental Health would see a 30% reduction in funding and $500 million decrease in 2019. So what happened? I thought you thought the issue was mental health. So why are you cutting mental health by $665 million? Now, to the bill that the NRA argued on behalf of. As NPR's Scott Horsley noted, nearly a year ago, the president signed a bill making it easier for people with mental illness to buy guns. The new measure rolled back an Obama-era rule that would have required Social Security Administration to send records of some beneficiaries with severe mental disabilities to the FBI's National Instant Criminal Background Check System. NPR's Susan Davis reported about 75,000 people found mentally incapable of managing their financial affairs would have been affected. The NRA pushed for, and because of all the bribes they gave to Donald Trump and other Republicans, succeeded in passing a bill that says if you are so mentally incompetent that you cannot handle your own finances, we still will allow you to buy a gun. They reversed an Obama-era bill that would have prevented the mentally ill from getting guns. They don't believe it. Dana Loesch now trying to say, it's not the guns, it's not the guns, it's crazy people. Earlier, the people that Dana Loesch worked for insisted that mentally ill people be allowed to buy guns. Why? Because the NRA gets their money from people who sell guns. So they want to sell as much as humanly possible. They want to maximize their profits. And they don't sell flowers, they don't sell vegetables, they sell weapons. Weapons that kill people. They make more profit when more people buy weapons. And if they use those weapons to kill people, it creates a panic, which creates even more weapon buying. That is a cycle that is vicious to us, but great for their business and their bottom line. That's why they pay Dana Loesch so much money to get out there and lie to you. So now that was the soft stuff she said. Then she goes to CPAC, that's the conservative conference, and she decides, oh, this is my crowd now. I could be as vicious as I like. So here she is.
Now I'm going to say something that some people are going to say is controversial. So I'll say it really slowly so all the people on the platform in the back can hear me loud and clear. Many in legacy media love mass shootings. You guys love it. Now, I'm not saying that you love the tragedy, but I am saying that you love the ratings. Crying white mothers are ratings gold to you and many in the legacy media in the back. And notice I said crying white mothers because there are thousands of grieving black mothers in Chicago every weekend, and you don't see town halls for them, do you? Where's the CNN town hall for Chicago? If it bleeds, it leads, doesn't it? And I don't mean to ignore you all here, but I'm really looking at a lot of the legacy media back there on the platform. And you can write whatever you want about me, and you can come find me in the hallways, and you can scream at me, and you can try to confront me. But I'm here, we're not going anywhere. I call BS.
She then tries to appropriate Emma Gonzalez, one of the students' slogan about calling BS. Man, these people are really sick. So if you want to make a valid point about, hey, the media shouldn't publicize the name, the picture of the shooters, that's a point we make, and we try really hard not to say the names of the shooters after the initial story. We don't want to glorify the violence. And if you, on the other hand, want to say that the media, shouldn't cover the shootings. Why shouldn't they cover the shootings? Because that shows everybody that the thing that you sell, Dana, murders people, kills people. That's what it's designed for. Guns, I don't know if you know this because you're pretty stupid. Guns are designed to kill things, including people. And they do a pretty good job at it. They just killed 17 people, 14 kids in that Parkland school, 58 in Vegas, 49 in Orlando, and the list goes on and on. 20 in Newtown. There's no end to it. There's no end to the massacres. But somehow it's not the people with the guns doing the massacres. It's the people that are covering the massacres that are causing the problem. No, I'm pretty sure it's the people with the guns killing them. They didn't get killed by a TV. They didn't get killed by a radio. They didn't get killed by the internet. They got killed by a gun. But Dana profits off of guns. You know what that means? It means she loves mass shootings because it makes her richer. But what does she do as a classic conservative? Projection. She loves mass shootings, so she says, don't look at me, don't look at me. I get a huge paycheck from the NRA to do propaganda for them. The NRA gets huge paychecks from the gun manufacturers. They profit off of you buying guns and these guys buying guns and killing people. That scares the hell out of people. People buy more guns. Well, that's a huge win for Dana Loesch and the NRA because they love mass shootings. Dana Loesch and the NRA, the biggest terrorists in the country. 9/11 was about 3,000 people. Over 30,000 people die every single year from guns in this country. You know how many people died from guns in Japan in a recent year? 13, that's it. We're 3 times the size of Japan, so let's call it 39. We have, in a recent year, 37,000 gun-related deaths. 37,000 versus 39. Not 39,000, just 39. You know why? They're not more crazy people in America than Japan. They're not more violent or criminal people in America than Japan. There's more guns in America than Japan. And Dana Loesch loves it because she loves mass shootings. All right. Now, let me turn to the Democrats for a second. Okay. Now, an enormous majority of Americans want gun control. There are certainly debates about what degree of gun control, but a universal background check to, for example, get rid of the gun show loophole polls at over 90%. So, especially with the country in a rage now over another school shooting, another massacre on Valentine's Day, this appears to be a good time for the Democrats to say, all right, we're going to stand up for progressive values here. Because it would be a wonderful thing to do for the American people. It is the right thing to do in policy, and it would be the right thing to do politically. So are the Democrats going to do that? Now, if you know the establishment Democrats, unfortunately, you know the rest of the story. The answer is, of course not. So here's a headline from a story in the paper today in the Hill. Dems want gun control, but worry it could cost them the midterms. Oh, they are repulsive. Why won't progressives just bow their heads and unify behind the coward corporate Democrats? Gee, I can't tell. I wonder why. Here, let's go to the heart of the story and tell you why they won't fight on this issue. They're unreal. They're unreal. As the issue continues to dominate the headlines, some Democrats back an understated approach. Of course they do. God forbid they should fight hard. Particularly with vulnerable Democrats like Senators Heidi Heitkamp and Joe Manchin up for re-election in red states. Get them out, get them out, get them out. I hope to God they lose in primaries. In general elections, look, the Republicans are loathsome and I don't want them to win. But if it turns out a couple of really conservative Democrats are preventing the rest of the Democratic Party from fighting hard, then they are doing more harm than good. Well, I mean, because I don't want Joe Manchin, who's incredibly conservative, to lose his seat. On his behalf, we're gonna power down the whole Democratic Party at the national level. Oh, for God's sake. By the way, look, if that was true, I don't know if I'd be angry or less angry. I think less angry. I'll tell you why. It's an excuse. They don't want to do anything. They get paid to lose. So they're like, well, look, over 90% of Americans agree with us. So how do we lose this one? Well, they figured out a way. Okay, so as Senate Democratic aide says, quote, it's certainly more of a base issue than in years past. Do you know what that means? I'll decipher for you because I speak politics. It means, all the senators are not progressive. They don't care at all. So this is what the base cares about. Oh, they're so annoying. These progressive voters we have that actually want progressive policy positions. It's more of a base issue this year than it used to be. We used to be able to ignore this with no problem, but now the progressive base hounds us and makes us actually work for a living a little bit. I'm so sorry to have bothered you. Okay, here's another former Democratic leadership aide. He says, how do you keep from having a conversation about sensible changes to be turned into, they want to take your guns away? So in other words, he's saying, well, the Republicans, if we go to do any gun control, even one backed by 90% of Americans, will say, oh, they're just trying to take your guns away. He says, so obviously we have to give up. How would we fight back? You would use this thing called a mouth. It actually can emit words. You would actually fight back by saying other things. Wow, they never thought about that. They're like, but the Republicans will say this. Well, then you say that. You counter them, you moron, you coward. You go, oh, hey, the Republicans say that we're trying to take your guns away, but we're not. We're doing sensible gun control that 93% of Americans agree with. Wow, that was so hard, so hard. Yeah, you might as well just surrender instead. I can't tell why people loathe establishment Democrats. I can't tell it. But they really can't in Washington. They are perplexed. They're like, why does the progressive base bother us so much? We just wanted to just get back into our comfy little beds and surrender already. Why won't you let us surrender? Okay, Meredith Kelly, spokeswoman for the House Democrats campaign arm, said the party has no plan for a national messaging strategy on gun reform, citing the geographically and culturally diverse House battlefield. For God's sake, man, look, we understand politics. So if you're running in New York, you might run on a more pro-gun control platform. If you're running in the middle of Montana, you might not. And those candidates might do different things. We're perfectly aware of that. But that doesn't mean that you have to do unilateral disarmament, almost literal in this case, at a national level. So what does that create? It creates Republicans who go on TV nonstop. Oh, they're taking your guns away, they're taking your guns away. Second Amendment, Second Amendment, Second Amendment, NRA is awesome. These are American rights. And what are the Democrats, what do you say? Nothing. No, Heidi Heitkamp might lose in North Dakota. Joe Manchin, my donors. Oops, did I say that out loud? Whatever, I don't know. I just want to go back to bed. So at the national level, they will have no messaging on guns. They are the worst of the worst. The Republicans are so deeply corrupt. They take all that NRA money and then they work at their behalf, no matter how many kids get shot in how many schools. But the Democrats in their surrender to those loathsome people are arguably maybe even lower than them. Now, of course, it's not every Democrat, and there are progressives who fight back. But unfortunately, the majority of the establishment Democrats will not fight. They will have no national messaging on this. By the way, if you want more polls, I'll give you more polls. One that just came out. The Political Morning Consult poll conducted after the deadly shooting last week at a Florida high school finds 64% of respondents are in favor of tougher gun control laws. Now, that's not the specific universal background check that has over 90%. That is in general. In general, they say, oh, they're trying to take your guns away. You say, no, I want tougher gun control laws. You have 64% of the country on your side. If you can't win with 2/3 of the country behind you, please retire, please, let progressives run instead. Get out of the way, you miserable losers. By the way, the poll also found that 45% of Republicans said they would support tougher gun laws. You've got almost half the Republicans on your side and you still won't fight. One last one, among Democrats, 84% support stricter gun laws compared with just 13% who oppose them. but almost all of their politicians are in that 13%. So yes, some fight back. Chris Murphy, almost all the progressive senators, and however little there are of them, and members, some members of the Progressive Caucus, etc. But the majority of the Democrats are the establishment Democrats. And they go, 84% of my voters want it, even half the Republican voters want it. I don't care. Joe Manchin says no. By the way, Paula Jean Swearengin is running against Joe Manchin in West Virginia. Go out there in the primaries, go in the primaries in every race. Primaries are more important than general elections. Get rid of these bums. If you don't vote in primaries, you don't care about this country. If you care about being a progressive and you care about rescuing this country, you must vote in primaries to vote these bums out and put real progressives that are uncorrupted to represent you. JusticeDemocrats.com, that is one group. There are other groups, but the Just Democrats don't take corporate PACs. Paula Jean Swearengin against Manchin. Get rid of the bum, get rid of the bum. If he's holding back all progress, primary the living hell out of all of them and let them cry. Oh, I don't know why they don't like me. I keep surrendering to Republicans, but I can't figure out why they don't like me. We don't like you because you're corrupt and you're craven. Get the hell out already, young Turks. All right, back on the Young Turks. Guys, if you like this show, share the stream. Easiest thing in the world. If you're watching Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're watching, share it, okay? If you miss any portion of the show, by all means, become a member. tytnetwork.com/join. You can get the show anytime you want, commercial free. Let me give you some tweets that just came in. Mr. Fribble says, I'm more concerned about armed teachers going off and shooting up the schools themselves. If we arm the teachers, tick-tock, tick-tock until that happens. Of course that's gonna happen. God, it's so unbelievably stupid. On the idea that if there are armed guards around you, nobody will try to shoot. Downwing Radical says, Reagan had armed Secret Service around him when he got shot. Excellent point. Kelly says, calling BS just literally made me audibly gasp. What scum she is. So, all right, there's so many more guys, but I gotta go. Hold on, before I do the last couple of stories for you, I'm doing more segments today by myself. I think you guys can tell that. John is gonna come in a little bit and give you some other stories as well. Let me check in on tytkansas.com. Okay, that's for Brent Welder. So 110 of you guys have already donated. I love you, keep it going. Let's get to $50,000 so Brent Welder can have a field team in Kansas and finish Yoder. Finish him, finish the corporate Democrat in the primary, then finish Republican in Kansas, end their careers and get a real, true, uncorrupted progressive in office in Kansas. All right, let's go over here. Wayne LaPierre came out of hiding, came out of his bunker. They had not said anything to the NRA for about 6 days after the shooting because they like to lay low after those shootings. Then they come out and say loathsome things. So how's he gonna do? He's gonna do it at CPAC. Now they didn't announce that he was gonna speak there because they were worried about protests. What happened? I thought you guys were tough guys. So then he comes out and then and of course wild cheering by the loathsome people attending CPAC. Republican politicians are bad enough. Some of the Republican voters, about half, are the deplorables, and that is exactly the worst of the worst. Go to these conferences. And where they fight for all the horrible things like, hey, no gun control America, massacres in schools, what's the big deal? Okay, so Wayne LaPierre is certainly going to give them their money's worth at CPAC. Let's start watching. He's the head of the NRA.
It's a bizarre fact that in this country, our jewelry stores all over this country are more important than our children. Our banks, our airports, our NBA games, our NFL games, our office buildings, our movie stars, our politicians, they're all more protected than our children at school. Does that make any sense to anybody? Do we really love our money and our celebrities more than we love our children? In every community in America, school districts, PTAs, teachers unions, local law enforcement, moms and dads, they all must come together to implement the very best strategy to harden their schools, including effective, trained armed security that will absolutely protect every innocent child in this country.
So, I was giving directions to Edwin while we came back. Anyway, so Wayne LaPierre wants you to deflect your attention. He talks about movie stars and NBA games for some reason and celebrities. Why does he do that? He wants you to think, oh yeah, they protect those guys, but they don't protect your kids. Well, that's not why they do it. They don't have security at a basketball game because they care more about LeBron James than they care about your kids. They do it because there's a lot of people at those venues. And so a mass shooter can do even more damage. Lots of people on a plane. That's why we do security. It's not because we care more about the lives of pilots and flight attendants than we do about kids. It's because those are security perimeters that have been breached before and cause mass deaths. Now, under Wayne LaPierre's ideology, well, let's have it everywhere. Let's have it at the movie theater. Let's have it at armed guards everywhere. Armed guards would mean more people have to buy weapons from the gun manufacturers that the NRA represents. What a wonderful coincidence, huh? But I'm sure he didn't think of it that way. He's just trying to look out for you guys. All right, let's go to video 11 here. He's got more.
In my 3 decades of leading the NRA, I've had the pleasure of working with a number of Democrats who believed America to be the greatest country in the world. But during the last decade, the Obama decade, many of those leaders have been forced out as a tidal wave of new European-style socialists seize control of the Democratic Party. And socialism is a movement that loves to smear. Racist, misogynist, sexist, xenophobe, and more. These are the weapons and vitriol these character assassinations scream to permanently hang on their targets and create a growing segment of victims. Because socialism feeds off manipulated victims. You name the group, and they will find a way to turn them into victims. From the Occupy movement, to Black Lives Matter, to Antifa, they agitate the offended, promote uncivil discourse, and ignore any sense of due process and fairness to destroy their enemies. The elimination of due process is the very gold standard of the socialist state.
Hold, because he's about to attack due process in the next clip. But let's break down what he said there. First of all, armed guards. We need more armed guards at the school. Oops, Parkland, Florida, where they had the mass shooting, had an armed guard. He didn't go in. The guard, by the way, the person who did the shooting, former student, knows they have an armed guard. Went in and did the shooting anyway, and the armed guard didn't do any good. Oops, your ideology is totally bankrupt, totally wrong. Then why are you bringing Black Lives Matter in this? Did Black Lives Matter do the shooting? No. No, they had absolutely nothing to do with it. Did Occupy do the shooting? Did Antifa do the shooting? No. But you just like to smear them for no reason. Always projection. Socialists love to smear people. Now let me smear people that had nothing to do with this shooting, but that you hate. You hate Black Lives Matter because you don't like black people at CPAC. Hey, I have a vicious right-wing crowd in front of me. Don't you hate Occupy, the people who say, hey, you should have higher wages? Idiots. Let's smear them on an issue that has nothing to do with them. And speaking of smears, he says socialists love smears, which is in itself a smear of socialists. So let's see if he's right about the dangers of socialism. Because if Wayne LaPierre is right, and those poor idiot socialists, they've disarmed themselves. They don't allow nearly as many weapons as we do. And so they obviously have a lot more killings over there related to firearms, right? Because there's no good guy with a gun to stop the bad guys with a gun. That's Wayne LaPierre's famous comment, and he said it again at the end of this speech. So, what is the total firearm death rates in the US? 10.2%. So this night, it's obviously not 10% of Americans being killed. It is a ratio. So just to give you context with other countries, okay? So now, at that same ratio, let's look at the more socialist Northern European countries and some other developed countries with less guns. So we're at 10.2. United Kingdom, which has very, very little guns, is at 0.2. Wait, I thought they would have more. Why don't they have more? No good socialists over in the UK, 0.2. Well, Netherlands, they're way more socialist, 0.5. Ireland, 1. New Zealand, 1.2. Sweden, very socialist, 1.5. Remember, we're at 10.2. Denmark, socialist, 1.6. Norway, very socialist, 1.8. Canada, 2.3. Finland, 3.6. All way lower firearm death rates than America. What happened? I thought no good, dirty socialists. Oh, I see, that was just a smear, not based in reality at all, meant to again deflect attention from the horrors of the NRA and what they have inflicted upon us here in America. One last clip.
Think about that. In the midst of genuine grief and a very understandable passion, as millions of Americans search for meaningful solutions, what do we find? Chris Murphy, Nancy Pelosi, and more, cheered on by the national media, eager to blame the NRA and call for even more government control. They hate the NRA. They hate the Second Amendment. They hate individual freedom. Their solution is to make you, all of you, less free. They want to sweep right under the carpet the failure of school security, the failure of family, the failure of America's mental health system, and even the unbelievable failure of the FBI.
So the guy who said that liberals don't want due process, now railing against the FBI. Why? Because he wants to protect the president who's being investigated by the FBI. That's the president they gave $31 million to during the campaign. That's the president they want to make sure does not pass any new gun control laws. So he's saying, oh, the goddamn FBI doing due process and actually following the rule of law in America. What happened? As always, projection. Whatever they believe, they project onto the others and to their opponents. And they want to make you less free. Less free what? To do massacres inside schools? And then for him to blame everything but guns. Say, the mental health problems in America, that's the real problem. Well, the NRA pushed Donald Trump and succeeded in passing a bill that would allow more mentally ill people to buy guns. 75,000 more mentally ill people in America are allowed to buy guns because of the NRA. He's an absolute liar. He's Wayne bin Laden, okay? Finally, he blamed the American family. He said the failure of the family. You're gonna say that to the family of those kids who got murdered in Florida? You sick animal. You make money, blood money, by selling weapons that are used in massacre after massacre. And after their kids die, then you blame their families? The NRA is the sickest organization in America. Well, young Turks.